Jessica had just settled into the quiet comfort of her backyard when the shrill ring of the doorbell shattered the evening calm. It was well past 6, time when most neighbours were winding down, not raising a ruckus. Frowning, she rose from the patio chair, brushing dirt from her jeans as she approached the front door. When she swung it open, there stood Diane. Diane with her perfectly coiffed hair, arms crossed like a drill sergeant, eyes sharp enough to cut glass. Diane, the self-appointed watchdog of Willow Creek HOA, infamous for turning the smallest complaint into a full-blown neighborhood witch hunt. "You! What are you doing on HOA property again?" Diane's voice was icy, clipped, a storm wrapped in a smile. "You can't just stroll around where you don't belong." Jessica blinked. "I'm in my own backyard," she said, voice calm, but cautious. "I live here, Diane. This is my home." Diane's lips pressed into a thin line. "That's not what I'm hearing. There have been complaints. Trespassing. Vandalism. People don't want you here." She pulled out her phone and started dialing. "I'm calling the police." Jessica's heart thudded. "Wait, no, this is ridiculous. I haven't left my property. What complaints? Who said that?" Before Diane could answer, a low rumble of an engine drew Jessica's attention toward the edge of the property. Her eyes snapped to the tree line, bordering the infamous ranch. A vast, neglected stretch of land everyone in the community assumed was owned and maintained by the HOA. The spot where Diane now insisted Jessica had no right to be, but Jessica knew the truth felt off, like a jigsaw puzzle piece forced where it didn't belong. "Diane, this isn't right," Jessica said, stepping back inside her house, locking the door behind her. She called out, "Please don't involve the police for no reason." But Diane was already speaking rapidly into her phone, her sharp voice echoing through the quiet street. "Yes, I'm at 123 Willow Creek. There's a trespasser, someone, on HOA land who refuses to leave." Jessica's pulse quickened. Neighbours started peering from windows, whispering amongst themselves. The tension in the air thickened like fog, settling low over the ranch. Minutes later, flashing blue and red, lights painted the street in ominous colours. 2 officers stepped from their patrol car, their expressions calm but alert. Jessica opened her door again, holding her hands out in peace. "I live here. I haven't trespassed anywhere. I don't understand what's going on." The taller officer gave a polite nod. "Ma'am, we just respond to calls. We need to verify the complaint." Diane stepped forward, waving her phone. "She's trespassing on HOA property. I saw her near the ranch boundary." Jessica's gaze darted again to the darkened edge of the property, to the mysterious figures lurking just beyond the fence line, shadows that didn't belong. The officer asked for Jessica's ID, then took out a small device to check property records. "According to this, you're listed as owner here," he said, surprise flickering across his face. Jessica's throat tightened. That's impossible. I don't own the ranch. This is my home." The tension between Diane and Jessica crackled like electricity. Diane's eyes flashed with something unreadable. Anger. Fear. Both. Before the situation could spiral further, Diane hissed, "This isn't over. I'll be watching." The officers exchanged a glance and decided to let Jessica remain, but the damage was done. Neighbours whispered behind her back. The air was thick with suspicion and questions. As Diane stalked away, Jessica felt an uneasy chill crawl up her spine. Something was very wrong in Willow Creek, and whatever it was just beginning to surface. The police officers had left, their blue and red lights fading into the distance. But the tension in Willow Creek's usually peaceful street lingered like an unwelcome fog. Jessica stood on her porch, Gripping the railing, her mind spinning, Diane's accusations echoed relentlessly in her ears. Trespassing, vandalism, complaints. But where were the complaints? Who had made them? And why was Diane so determined to cast her out? Neighbors began to emerge from their homes in small groups, hushed whispers, filling the air like a brewing storm. Some cast curious glances at Jessica. Others exchanged wary looks with Diane, who stood at the edge of the street, arms folded and face tight with determination. Jessica's eyes narrowed as she noticed something strange. A figure lurked near the boundary of the ranch, a silhouette partially obscured by the shadows of the tall oak trees. The person was still, watching. A shiver ran down her spine. Who was that? And why hadn't Diane noticed? "Jessica!" called a voice from across the street. It was Mark, a longtime neighbor and friend. "You okay?" She forced a small smile, though the unease gnawed at her. "I will be. Just confused." Mark's brow furrowed. "I don't like how Diane came at you. Like she's hunting for something." Jessica nodded. "Me too." Diane, overhearing the exchange, strode over with a sharp smile. "Jessica, you're welcome to think what you want, but the HOA has rules, and they're here to keep this community safe. Someone's been damaging the ranch, and you were seen near there. That's a fact." Jessica took a deep breath, trying to steady her rising panic. "Damaging the ranch? That's news to me. I've been home all day." Diane's eyes narrowed. "Do you expect us to believe that? Or do you expect us to ignore what's happening because of who you are?" Jessica's heart jumped. Who she was. The words sounded like a threat. But why? Before she could respond, Diane's phone buzzed. She glanced at it quickly, and then looked back at Jessica with an unsettling smirk. "Looks like someone else is interested in this little drama," she said cryptically. Jessica's gaze snapped back to the shadowy figure near the tree line. The stranger had vanished. "Who was that?" she demanded. Diane shrugged, but her expression hardened. "Doesn't matter, just stay out of the ranch. It's not yours." That phrase, "not yours," clung to Jessica's mind long after Diane walked away. That night, Jessica couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the day's events, the police, Diane's accusations, the mysterious figure. Something was off, deeper than petty HOA squabbles. Unable to resist, she pulled out her laptop and began searching property records online. Her fingers trembled as she typed her family's name into the county's database. A flood of documents appeared. Deeds, old maps, legal notices, and then she froze. There it was. Her family's name listed as the official owner of the ranch. The vast neglected stretch of land the HOA claimed was theirs. The same ranch Diane accused her of trespassing on. Jessica's mind reeled. How could she own it? No one ever told her. No one had mentioned the ranch in all the years she'd lived here. Her phone buzzed suddenly, snapping her back to the present. A text from an unknown number. "Leave it alone. Some things are better." Buried. Her breath caught. Was this a warning or a threat? Jessica's determination solidified. She wasn't going to back down. Not when the truth was buried beneath layers of secrecy and lies. But as she glanced out her window toward the dark silhouette of the ranch, she realized the fight was only just beginning. The next morning, Jessica woke with the weight of last night's revelation heavy on her chest. Her family name. On the deed to the ranch. It didn't make sense, yet the official records didn't lie. There was only one way to understand the truth. She had to see the documents for herself. Determined, she drove early to the county courthouse, a stately brick building she'd passed countless times but never entered. Inside, The air smelled faintly of dust and old paper. Rows of filing cabinets towered like silent sentinels, guarding decades of secrets. Jessica approached the records clerk, a kind-faced woman who barely glanced up as she asked, "How can I help you?" "I'm looking for property records, specifically for the ranch adjacent to Willow Creek," Jessica said, trying to keep her voice steady. The clerk nodded, typing into her computer. "That's a big parcel. Who's the owner?" Jessica hesitated, then gave her family name. "Let me see what we have," the clerk said, pulling out a heavy folder from a cabinet. She handed it to Jessica. Jessica sank into a nearby chair and opened the folder. Inside were deeds, property surveys, and legal papers dating back decades. Her eyes scanned each document, heart pounding, and then she found it. A deed, yellowed and fragile, bearing her great-grandfather's signature. It declared the ranch hers. Or rather, her family's. The document was unsigned by any HOA official, marked with faint stamps, but otherwise untouched. How could this be? Everyone had always said the ranch belonged to the HOA, that it was community, property for all residents, but here was proof that it had once been, and legally still was, her family's land. Jessica's mind raced. Had the HOA knowingly kept this a secret? Or had a clerical error erased her ownership? Her phone buzzed again. Another anonymous message. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." Jessica swallowed her fear. Whoever was watching her didn't want this uncovered. Determined to learn more, she decided to visit the HOA office, the place Diane had stormed out of days before. Maybe there were clues hidden in their files, or in the way they managed the ranch. Late afternoon found Jessica slipping through the front door of the HOA's modest building. The receptionist looked up, startled by the unexpected visitor. "I'm here to review some community records," Jessica said firmly, showing the deed in her hand, as silent proof she had a right. After a tense wait, an older man named Mr. Barnes, the HOA secretary, appeared. He led her into a cramped back room, filled with filing cabinets and stacks of papers. Jessica sifted through the files, searching for anything related to the ranch. Most documents were mundane. Landscaping contracts, meeting minutes, violation notices. But then she found a folder labeled Ranch Property Dispute, dated back 20 years. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside were letters between the HOA board and an attorney, discussing a contested land claim by a family named McAllister. Jessica's family. The HOA had apparently claimed the ranch as common property, but never legally finalized the transfer. There were references to a settlement that had been postponed indefinitely, and mentions of someone named Diane, who had played a key role. Jessica's stomach twisted. Diane had lied. Or worse, concealed the truth. Suddenly the office door creaked open. Jessica spun around, heart racing. It was Diane. Her eyes cold, lips curled in a tight smile. "Well, Jessica," Diane said smoothly, "I see you're digging into things best left alone." Jessica held up the deed. "This land belongs to my family. You knew it, didn't you? Why all the lies?" Diane's smile faded, replaced by a hard glint. "Ownership is complicated, and sometimes the community must come first, no matter the cost." Jessica took a step forward. "No one gets to steal what's rightfully mine. Not you. Not anyone." Diane's gaze dropped to the deed, then back to Jessica. "Be careful how far you dig. Some secrets have teeth." The tension between them thickened. Electric and dangerous. Jessica left the office with the folder in hand, her resolve steeled, but her heart pounding with unease. The deeper she went, the darker the secrets she uncovered. and she knew one thing for sure. Diane's warning was no idle threat. That evening, Jessica stood at the edge of the ranch, staring out over the sprawling wild landscape stretching beyond the last fence. The sun was dipping low, casting long shadows that twisted through the tall grass like ghostly fingers. The ranch had always been a place of mystery, a boundary few dared to cross. But tonight, Jessica was determined to step inside. She unclipped the gate lock, the metal clicking, loud in the heavy silence. Her heart hammered as she pushed the gate open and stepped inside, the air instantly changing. It smelled of earth and decay, mixed with something faintly metallic. The ground was uneven. Patches of dry grass mingled with bare dirt and scattered stones. She moved slowly, every sound amplified in the eerie quiet. The snap of a twig, the rustle of leaves. The ranch wasn't just abandoned, it felt watched. Jessica's eyes caught something carved into a nearby tree, a jagged symbol she didn't recognize. The deeper she walked, the more strange signs appeared. Faded spray paint marks on rocks, half-buried bottles with strange markings, and footprints, fresh footprints, leading toward an old barn. Her breath caught. Who else had been here? And why? The barn door hung loosely on its hinges, creaking in the wind. Jessica hesitated, then pushed it open. Inside, shadows swallowed the space. Broken tools lay scattered. Old tires stacked against a wall. Then she noticed a scrap of cloth caught on a nail. Bright red, fresh. Suddenly, a noise made her jump. From behind the barn, a figure darted into the trees. Jessica's heart leapt. She wanted to follow but hesitated. Who was this stranger? A trespasser? A thief? Or someone else with a claim on the ranch? Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out. Another anonymous message. You're stirring up things better left alone. Jessica's jaw clenched. Whoever was watching didn't want her here. She slipped back toward the gate, but then paused. Something glittered on the ground near the barn's entrance. A small metal box, half buried in the dirt. Kneeling, Jessica picked it up. It was locked, but surprisingly heavy. She slipped it into her bag, heart pounding with the thrill of discovery and the prickling warning of danger. Back in her house, Jessica sat with the box on her kitchen table, staring at it like a puzzle, begging to be solved. What secrets could it hold? Was this the key to understanding the tangled history of the ranch and Diane's aggressive hostility? Her phone buzzed again. Another message. Last warning, leave the ranch alone. But Jessica's fear was mingled now with fierce determination. She wasn't about to back down. Not when she had so many questions. And now, tangible proof that someone was hiding something. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. The ranch, dark and sprawling just beyond her backyard, seemed to pulse with secrets waiting to be uncovered. Jessica knew one thing for certain. Stepping onto that land had opened a door that couldn't be closed, and whatever awaited on the other side was far bigger and darker than she ever imagined. The next morning, the heavy metal box sat on Jessica's kitchen table like a silent challenge. She turned it over in her hands, searching for any clue to its lock mechanism, but it was stubbornly sealed tight. The box was old, worn, and cold, to the touch, like a heartbeat frozen in time. Her phone buzzed again, this time a message from an unknown number. Some truths can ruin more than just land. Jessica's pulse quickened. Someone wanted her to stop digging. But that only made her more determined. If Diane was so desperate to keep the ranch off limits, there had to be more than just property at stake. Later that afternoon, Jessica decided it was time to confront Diane directly. If Diane truly cared about the community, maybe there was a way to find common ground. Jessica found Diane in the community garden, bending over a patch of marigolds. Diane's expression hardened when she saw Jessica approach, but she said nothing. As Jessica took a deep breath, "Diane," Jessica began, "I know the ranch is important to you, but it's important to me too. My family owns it. The deed is clear. Why have you been hiding this?" Diane stood slowly, wiping dirt from her hands. Her eyes flickered with something unspoken. "Ownership isn't always about papers, Jessica. Sometimes it's about who's willing to fight for what's right." Jessica frowned. "You mean the HOA?" Diane nodded. "This community is more than houses and fences. It's safety, order, and tradition. The ranch was supposed to be a sanctuary for all of us. But lately, it's become something else." Jessica's gaze sharpened. "Something else?" Diane hesitated, then lowered her voice. "People have been sneaking onto the ranch at night. Vandalism, fires, even threats. I've been trying to protect the community from that." Jessica's stomach tightened. "Do you think it's me?" Diane's eyes narrowed. "I don't know what you want, but you've stirred up a hornet's nest. And some of the people involved don't want their secrets exposed." Jessica felt a chill run down her spine. "Who?" Before Diane could answer, a voice interrupted from behind them. "You're barking up the wrong tree, Diane." Jessica turned to see Mr. Harper, a longtime HOA board member, his face grim. "I don't like how this is going," Harper said. "We've kept this quiet for years. The ranch dispute is settled, unofficially. Bringing it up again risks everything." Jessica clenched her fists. "Unofficially? You mean you've been lying to the residents?" Harper shrugged. "Sometimes the truth is too messy. We did what was best for the community." Jessica's eyes burned. "The community deserves the truth, not lies." Diane stepped closer, voice low and fierce. "You don't understand the history here. Your family lost this land decades ago in a deal that went south. The HOA took over for the good of everyone." Jessica's mind reeled. "Then why is my name still on the deed? Why was I never told?" Harper exchanged a glance with Diane, hesitation flickering. "Some documents were lost, misplaced. Legal battles were messy. It was never about hiding you personally. More about protecting the neighborhood." Jessica shook her head. "This is a web of lies, and I want out." Before anyone could respond, a sudden crash shattered the garden's quiet. Jessica spun to see a large planter smashed on the ground. Nearby, a piece of paper fluttered. Jessica picked it up. It was a faded photo. The ranch in its prime, with her great-grandfather standing proudly. But scrawled across the back were words that sent a shiver through her. "Stop now, or lose everything." The warning was clear. Jessica looked at Diane and Harper. The tension between them was no longer hidden. The fight for the ranch wasn't just about land, it was about power, and whoever held it was willing to go to dangerous lengths to keep it. That night, Jessica barely slept. The shattered planter and the cryptic photo haunted her mind, gnawing at the edges of her thoughts like a restless ghost. Whoever was sending warnings wanted her to back off, but instead of fear, a fierce resolve settled in her chest. She checked the locked metal box again. It sat silently on her kitchen table, an enigma waiting for answers. She knew that box was the key. Somewhere inside was the truth she needed. Determined, Jessica grabbed a flashlight and her tools, heading out to the barn under the cover of darkness. The ranch was eerily quiet, the moon casting ghostly silver light over the tangled grass and broken fences. Every sound seemed amplified. The crunch of leaves beneath her boots, the distant hoot of an owl. As she approached the barn, the air grew thick with anticipation. She slid open the creaking door and moved inside, her flashlight sweeping over piles of dust-covered crates and forgotten farming equipment. Then her light caught the metal box, Nestled among old sacks, she set to work on the lock, fingers trembling with a mix of excitement and nervousness. After several tense minutes, a soft click echoed. The lid creaked open. Inside she found a bundle of old papers, yellowed and fragile, tied with a faded red ribbon. Carefully, Jessica unfolded the top sheet, a letter dated nearly 50 years. Ago, addressed to her great-grandfather. The letter was cryptic, speaking of a hidden truth, buried beneath the ranch, something that could change everything if revealed. It warned of those who would stop at nothing to keep the secret. Jessica's breath caught. She read on, the letter mentioning a lost family heirloom, a small wooden box containing proof of ownership and a map to a hidden chamber somewhere on the ranch. The letter ended with a desperate plea to protect the secret, no matter the cost. Her heart pounded. This was more than just a land dispute. There was something buried here, something powerful. Suddenly the barn door slammed shut. Behind her, jolting her from her thoughts, Jessica spun around, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. No, she whispered. Eyes wide, the shadows moved. A figure stepped forward, tall, cloaked in darkness, face obscured. Jessica's voice caught. Who's there? The figure didn't answer, but took a step closer. Jessica backed up, heart racing. She grabbed a rusty pipe lying nearby, gripping it tightly. The figure stopped, then spoke in a low, gravelly voice. You shouldn't be here. Jessica swallowed her fear. I have a right to be here. This land belongs to my family. The figure laughed softly, a sound like gravel shifting. Ownership is meaningless if you don't know the truth. You're in over your head. Jessica's mind flashed to Diane and Mr. Harper. Their warnings, the threats. This was bigger than she imagined. What do you want from me? She demanded. To protect the secret, to keep the past buried. The figure said, if you want to survive, stop digging. Jessica's grip on the pipe tightened. I won't. The figure stepped back into the shadows, vanishing as suddenly as it had appeared. Jessica stood alone in the barn, breath ragged, heart pounding like a drum. She knew the warnings were no joke. The ranch held secrets, dark, dangerous secrets, and the fight for the truth had just become a battle for survival. The next morning, the sun rose like a pale promise over the ranch. But Jessica's mind was clouded with shadows. The encounter in the barn had left her shaken, yet more determined than ever to uncover the truth buried beneath the land she now anew was hers. She pulled on boots, grabbed a shovel from her garage, and headed back to the ranch. Every step toward that sprawling wild expanse felt like walking deeper into a labyrinth of secrets. The letter from the box mentioned a hidden chamber somewhere on the property, and a map inside the wooden box her great-grandfather had left. But she didn't even know where to begin looking. Jessica scanned the land carefully. A rusted windmill stood to the north, its skeletal frame creaking softly in the breeze. Old stone walls lay broken and tangled with vines. Then her eyes settled on the base of an ancient oak tree, gnarled and immense, its roots sprawling like the fingers of time itself. The tree matched a sketch in the letter, vaguely resembling a landmark drawn in faded ink. Jessica knelt and began digging at its base, dirt tumbling away in clumps. Minutes stretched into an hour. The muscles in her arms ached, but she refused to stop. Then her shovel hit something hard. Her heart skipped a beat. Carefully, she brushed away the dirt to reveal a weathered wooden box, small but sturdy, bound with rusted iron. Jessica pried it open, revealing its contents: an old leather-bound journal, a folded map, and a small ornate key. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the map, its edges brittle, but the ink still legible. It detailed the ranch with a series of symbols, leading to a spot marked simply, "The Chamber." The journal was written in her great-grandfather's handwriting, shaky but deliberate. It chronicled the family's fight to protect the ranch, warnings about people who wanted to claim it for themselves, and references to the chamber as a safe haven, holding evidence to prove rightful ownership. Jessica's mind raced. This was the proof she needed, but if Diane, Harper, and the shadowy figure wanted to keep it hidden, danger was close. Suddenly her phone buzzed with a text. "You're trespassing. Last chance to leave." Jessica's blood ran cold. She looked up at the towering oak, then back at the journal and map. There was no turning back. Determined, she set out to find the chamber. The map led her to a cluster of large boulders near a dry creek bed. Behind them, partially concealed by thick brush, was a narrow opening, a cave mouth. The air was cool and damp as Jessica crawled inside, her flashlight piercing the darkness. The tunnel twisted sharply, then opened into a small chamber carved from stone. Inside, dust-covered crates, old documents, and faded photographs filled the space. A secret vault hidden beneath the ranch. Jessica's heart pounded as she sifted through the papers. Deeds, contracts, and letters proving beyond doubt her family's ownership. But then, her flashlight flickered. From the shadows, a low voice whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." Jessica whirled around. Standing at the chamber's entrance was Diane, eyes blazing with anger and fear. "You've uncovered what I've tried to protect for years," Diane said, voice trembling. "This secret could destroy everything the HOA has built." Jessica stood firm. "The truth can't be hidden forever." Diane took a step closer. "It's not just about land. There are people who will stop at nothing to keep this quiet." Jessica met her gaze. "I'm ready for whatever comes." For a tense moment, they simply stared. Two women on opposite sides of a battle, rooted in decades of lies. Then Diane's expression softened, almost regretful. "Be careful, Jessica. The past is never truly dead." As Diane retreated into the shadows, Jessica clutched the proof tightly. She had found the chamber and the truth, but the real battle was just beginning. Jessica emerged from the hidden chamber, the weight of the old documents and letters heavy in her hands, and heavier still on her heart. The truth was finally within her grasp. Yet the shadow of danger loomed closer than ever. She knew Diane's warning was real. This secret wasn't just about ownership. It was about power, control, and years of buried betrayal. Back at her house, Jessica spread the documents across her kitchen table, piecing together decades of history, the lost deeds, family betrayals, even evidence of corruption within the HOA. The ranch wasn't just land. It was a legacy stolen by those who feared what would happen if the truth came out. Her phone buzzed again. A new message from the anonymous number. "You're close. They're watching." A sudden knock at the door startled her. She peered. Through the peephole, no one. Just an empty porch, swaying in the breeze. Jessica's pulse raced. The stakes had never been higher. She decided it was time to take action. The next morning, she called a meeting at the community center, inviting residents, board members, even Diane and Harper. The room was tense, charged with whispered questions and suspicious glances. Jessica stood at the front, her voice steady but firm. "I have something everyone here needs to see," she began, unveiling the documents and photographs that proved her family's rightful ownership and revealed the HOA's long history of covering up the truth. Gasps filled the room. Diane's face paled. Harper looked cornered. "You've been lying to us." a neighbor whispered. Jessica nodded. For years, the HOA has controlled the narrative, keeping the ranch under their thumb by hiding legal proof and silencing dissenters. Diane's voice broke through, desperate. It was to protect the community, but at what cost? Jessica challenged. We deserve transparency and fairness. The tension snapped. Voices rose, accusations flew, but amid the chaos, the sheriff stepped forward. I've reviewed these documents, he said gravely. We'll investigate the HOA's actions thoroughly. Diane sank into her chair. Defeated, Jessica felt a swell of vindication, but also sadness. The woman who once tried to stop her was now just another casualty of the tangled past. That night, as Jessica stood looking out over the ranch from her porch, her phone buzzed one final time. A text from the anonymous number. You did what few dared. The ranch is yours. Guard it well, but beneath the relief lay a new unease. The shadows around the ranch had not disappeared. The fight for the land had awakened more than old secrets. It had stirred restless forces. Jessica smiled, a mix of triumph and caution. She owned the ranch now. But the real story was just beginning.